I welcome you all to this class of macroeconomics. Uh, in the last lecture, we were for the last time, I was discussing about municipal income. I request the participant, all this, to mute themselves. In the last lecture, I was discussing about national income, and I had taken a definition of national income, and was on the verge of explaining the methods. I think somebody is talking. Let me check who is there, and if it does not mute him, then I will have to. So while you join class, please mute yourself. Okay, do not create any disturbance. So, I took a definition of national income. I will carry forward the discussion, and today I will discuss with you about the methods for the computation of national income, and last part of my lecture I will highlight what are the shortcomings of national income as a measure of the aggregate economic welfare. You may also recall that one of the most important yardstick or parameter for measuring the performance of any country is GDP or GNP or national income. I will make a distinction what I mean by GNP and GDP. So let us recapitulate what I discussed in my last lecture. I discussed about the definition. The definition was national income is the aggregate money value of all final goods and services produced in a country during a given period of time. Now here the word aggregate, there are number of myriads of goods and services, and we take into account only final good, we exclude the intermediate goods, and when we multiply by the market price of the good with the quantity produced, then we arrive at. Because you know that when we try to measure national income using aggregate money value concept, then the various the methods for arriving at the output, like some in meter, some liter, and other thing, is brought to common denominator. And we also discussed that national income is a flow concept, that is, it is measured over a point of time, that may be 1 year. And in contrast to that, there are, for example, national income and national wealth. National wealth is accumulation of national income over a period of time. So these distinctions I made in my last lecture, and I showed this PPT also, that economy is producing, three products: burger, Coke, Cola, and fries. I have no, bias towards Western. You can replace with an Indian one. You know that will hardly make any difference. So the price multiplied by the quantity produced. When we add it, there are number of goods and services in an economy. When we do it, that there is a specialized institution to carry out this thing. In India, it is called CSO. I think that there is some disturbance, and I think that we have to CSO. In India, this task is carried by the Central Statistical. The entire organization is devoted. So, by attending this lecture, you will not become an expert in calculation of national income, but you will get an overview of what national income is. So, entire organization is devoted for computation of national income. Now I will go further and will try to explain to you what are the methods for. This was the point which I discussed in my last part of my lecture, that there are three approaches which are used for calculation of national income, and if there are no discrepancies, these three approaches or methods will lead to the same thing. Just look at here that output, when output is generated, those who are involved, they get income, and those who get income, they make expenditure. So you see that these arrows are showing that either we measure national income at the output level, or we aggregate the income received, or we add up the expenditure made. We will arrive at the same thing. What I am saying is that most of the countries use all these three methods, but not all the three methods are used in every sectors of the economy, because depending upon the availability of data and other things, and depending upon the economic development. So let us go further and try to understand how this is carried out. Just look at this statement, which will make you think. In every transaction, the buyer's expenditure becomes the seller's income. Now, if somebody is paying, for example, 10 rupee expenditure, now the seller will receive 10 rupee. I think there is no dispute with that. And that will include the profit also, the cost, the factors of production which have been paid out, plus the profit to the. So all the factors of production, the cost of good and so on and so forth. If the money has been borrowed, interest may have been paid. If it is unrented, the space, whatever it is. So all this. So the final price include all these things. So that is why if either we look at from the expenditure side or from the income side, if we add all these things, it will lead to the same thing. Now there is some finer point which I will just hint at. I will not go into that technical details, but that is not required. But if there is any question, I will address to that. Now, so if we measure national income, then using three methods. The first method is very straightforward, that the price of the product 1 multiplied by the quantity of product 1 plus the price of product 2 and so on and so forth, up to n number. If there are millions of commodities naturally in economy, if you multiply it, then we arrive at the national income. So, and please remember, whenever we are talking about the price, it is market price. Okay, and it is the price of the final goods. And if it is not the case, then value added approach is adopted at what stage, what are the value addition at each stage of production, like from a wheat, if it is converted into bread. So there are stages. So these value addition are, which is carried out. For example, the price of bread will include all these intermediate steps in the production process. So this is that if multiplied, we arrive at the national income. Then the second approach is that, as I told you, that for every rupee expenditure, a rupee worth income is generated. The same statement, just keep in mind. Now here, if we add up the income of factor income, whoever is involved in the production process, in the naturally the cost of goods will include these things, and we add it, the final price is quoted by. So all the factors of production, the labor for wages, interest for the capital, money borrowed, profit to the owner, all these, if we add it, then we arrive at the income approach, income through income method. And finally, the third method is that if we add up how much a consumption expenditure is made, see how much investment expenditure is made, how much expenditure government is making, and how much we are spending on the foreigners' good, that is net export, and how much foreigners are spending on our good. If we add up these things, then it also lead to the same thing. So let me belabor this point further to explain to you what I mean by this. So let us go in some detail of this expenditure and try to understand. For example, if you recall that the circular flow of economic activity, which we had discussed, that there is a household sector and there is a business sector. A household sector provides factor services, and businesses receive it, then they pay income to the household, and household sector, what they do, that they use this money, to businesses, they make expenditure for purchase of goods, and when businesses receive, they supply goods and services. So goods and services are supplied. So it is like, measuring the, so expenditure approach, if you look at it, is the circular flow which comes here, the upper flow and lower flow. But I think that the point relevant here is to understand that the national income is equal to the sum of factor income received. It may be from the wages, it may be from the salaries, it may be from rent or other. So when it is a generic term in economics, we use the word rent, wages, interest and profit. But it is a comprehensive term that includes all the payments made to all the factors of production. So now, what is expenditure? What are the various components of expenditure? This requires some explanation. For instance, the one we call it consumption expenditure, investment, government spending or expenditure, and then net export and minus import. That is spending by the foreigners on our good, that is called export, and how much we are spending on foreigners' good, that is import. So if it is positive, it will, if export is greater than the import, it will be positive. If it is export is less than import, it will be negative, net export. So, and in consumption expenditure is equal to the spending by the household sector on various products, maybe durable goods, maybe non-durable goods, all these things. So I have not a comprehensive list, but all the goods and services, spending on food, entertainment, healthcare, this is just illustrative, not comprehensive. Education and similarly, expenditure made by the businesses in machinery, equipment, building, and so on and so forth. And yet it is written here by newly built houses and inventories are included in, because there are some unsold items which are called inventories. So they are also added to the expenditure. So that there is no discrepancy. Only because all those houses which are newly built, old houses which were built earlier, they are not included. That is why national income excludes this. Now, government also is a major player in that government also makes expenditure on various items. For example, maybe government may provide like various expenditure programs, maybe employment guarantee programs or other income generating programs, or make expenditure on various items, maybe education, maybe other thing, maybe provision of services, and so on and so forth. And net export, I have already explained to you that it is export, foreigners' demand for our good, how much they spend, and import is our demand for their good, how much we. So it results in an outflow of money, and this results in inflow. So it is positive, the net export will be plus or like this. Now this is a very important C plus I plus G plus X. And this is a very important equation in economics, and it is said jokingly, in lighter vein, that if we teach a parrot this equation, one will become economist. For instance, in a recessionary condition like this, it is said that the consumers are not spending money, then businesses are not spending, then government should spend to revive the economy. This G part. And if there is a foreigners' demand is also not picking up, the export are not picking, government can come in. So that is why this is a very important. In order to revive the economy or steer economy out of trouble, then C plus I plus G plus X. So this is a very important equation. This is also GDP or national income. If you want to increase it. So there are, based on this thing, there are three phases of national income. First is national income can be measured at market value of final goods and services, that is price 1 into Q1 and so on and so forth. Similarly, we can measure C plus I plus G plus NX, and there is the factor income, whatever you call it, rent, interest, wages. So factor incomes. 3 phases of initial income are there. If there are no discrepancies, then we will lead to the same. But in calculation of this thing, there are discrepancies, and not in every economy all the 3. In India, for example, in some sectors, only expenditure, for example, in construction sector, the expenditure approach is used, whereas the published financial statements are available, maybe income, both the methods may be used. So the question is, how do we measure, for example, how much is the value agriculture produced? Just we will give an idea. For example, what is the total value of wheat produced in a country? Now, what is done actually by CSO is that a sample is taken to find out what is the total. First it is found out how much area is under cultivation. Naturally, as I told you, that entire organization, the data is aggregated at this level from the various states and districts and other things. How much is the area under cultivation, for example? Now, what is done, that a sample is taken of some field. What is the per hectare yield? Let us say in Aligarh. Total area, just an idea, per hectare. And then based on that, the market price. And then what is done is that it is multiplied by that. So it is not possible that one can carry out the computation for entire population, but a sample is taken, and based on this thing, the value of total output, that let us say wheat, is put. Similarly, for others also some informal method may be used and like that. So this is, I think that is a technical aspect of it, but I will address if there is question. Now, based on these 3 methods, we have 3 different aggregates. In some cases we call gross, some we call national, net, some we call national, and some we call domestic, some we call market price and factor cost. Now, what happens is that during the production process, there are wear and tear machinery. So what is done, the difference between gross and net is that we subtract from the national income the depreciation which is there. Then there is a GNP and GDP, that is gross national product, and GDP, domestic product. You know that Indian participate in world production and foreigners participate in, they are working in India, they contribute to their economy. So the difference between is that how much income we receive from the participation of Indians and how much we pay to the foreigners. Now here the question is that the geographical boundaries in a domestic territory, it is, for example, domestic. There are some gray areas. For example, if people from Nepal, they cross to India, or from Canada, they cross to Michigan every day to work it. So there are some gray areas, but the thing is that the difference is that the income which accrues to the nationals of a particular country for their participation in the world production, and how much foreigners. So the difference is called, for example, net factor income from abroad is called how much income received from abroad minus factor income paid abroad. Because the companies, they are working in India and other, so the dividend and they repatriated. Similarly, the Indian company, they participate in world production, our country receives it. So then there is one more concept which is important, that is national income at market price and factor cost. Now what happens that you know that there are certain products which are subsidized, isn't it? Like khadi and other small scale. Actual cost of production may be maybe 100 rupees, but government, you know, bears 20 rupees, let us say. So the price which buyers is paying only 80 rupees. 20 rupees subsidized by the government. Whereas when you are paying at market price, so it is include the indirect taxes. Let us say VAT, so the indirect taxes are there. Now, GST, what you call it now. So that add to. So market price includes the price plus the taxes, whereas the factor cost means that the price which is paid plus subsidies, because actual price is paid 80, whereas 20 rupee is paid by the government. So actual price, actual cost is 100 rupee. So this is the difference. So there's some technical thing, but I think that is not needed to go in that detail. So based on these aspects, we have various measures of national income, like some are called GNP at market price, GDP at market price. The difference between GNP and GDP is the factor income received from abroad, net factor income, and factor income paid abroad. And the difference between net and gross is that here we take into account the depreciation, minus depreciation, the wear and tear, and factor cost. Simply it means that and NDP and factor cost, here we exclude the indirect taxes plus we add subsidy to that. So this is for example, if you take GNP at market price, so GNP at market price, so GNP at market price is equal to the GNP at factor cost, the minus indirect, plus indirect taxes minus subsidies. Naturally, this equation can be manipulated in that way, but I think that is not needed. The idea is to illustrate to you how these are. So I once again repeat that there are various methods for calculation of national income, like some we call GDP and GNP. The difference is that the foreign sector, if we include the foreign sector in the calculation, in economy, for example, there are certain economies in the world where the external part, that is the NX part, that is export minus import part, that part is very high. For example, Southeast Asian economies, the contribution of foreign sector in their national income is up to 40%, 40 to 50%. This is not the case in India. So technically speaking, and GDP and GNP may lead to the same conclusion, you know, because this is not. But in other countries, because it constitutes a very large portion of, you know, the foreign sector, therefore it may make a lot of difference. Now, whenever we are talking about GNP or GDP, we are always talking in terms of real variables. Please recall that if you look at the first method, market price into quantity of goods, and so on, P1 into Q1 and up to so on and so forth. Now, as I hinted at in my earlier first lecture, that for instance, this is just let's say 2019, okay, no problem, 2020. Now it was 1000, the GDP was, and I'm using these terminology interchangeably, GDP. And in the year 2020, it becomes 1500, but at the same time, inflation is also 50%. So you see that the prices have gone up by 50%. So this part has gone up, isn't it? Now, it may be the case that this increase in GDP is on account of rise in price, not on account of increase in quantity. That is why whenever we are trying to measure GDP, we are using as a base year. Some base year is there. Benchmark year is taken, against which the national GDP or national income is measured. Otherwise, for instance, the price goes up, then it will show that there is an inflated. It will give inflated picture, whereas the quantity of goods and services has not increased. Whereas the GDP is showing the increase on account of the increase in price. So that is why imagine that the GDP, the national income is a balloon, where we take out the air of rise in price from this balloon and we take it as some constant price. So that because if quantity of goods and services has not increased, the output remains same. Prices have gone up. There is no increase in standard of living, and no, it is only generated by the increase in price. And this can be attributed only to the rise in price, not the increase. So let us take a concrete example to understand this. So this is what I just explained to you, that we take some base year, and the entire controversy in the GDP calculation, apart from the figure and other, also stem from the change in the base year in recent times. So in India also in real term, okay, not the nominal term. Nominal term means that we take into account the rise in price. Okay, so we use nominal GDP. That is like if you take the current price, will give the none. Whereas real GDP, which we are interested in, and whenever we say the growth has increased, we are always talking about the real GDP, not the nominal GDP, because nominal GDP is a deceptive indicator of the increase in income. Now coming to this point, let us take this example to further illustrate. Imagine that in economy there are these three items are produced. Okay. Quantity is this much, price in 2019 is 20. So if you multiply by these, it will give these things, it will give the national income. Now in the year 2020, the quantity has gone up by this. You see that price have gone up from 2025. It has gone up from this. So we do not take this price. We take some base year. Let us say this has acted as a base year. So what we will do that in order to arrive at, we will take the quantity multiplied by this price, not this price. Quantity, this, not this one. So that is why the base year is changed. For example, over the years, and when I take inflation, I will discuss about how the index and the base year is arrived at also. So it is like this. Otherwise, it will give wrong picture. So that is why here this calculation is carried out in this way. So that will give us, otherwise if we are using, so that will give a nominal GDP. So it will be the price will be this one, not 20. Quantity will be 2020. So like this. So this actor. So that is why it is always taken as the constant prices, because otherwise the rise in price will give a high increase in GDP, whereas in nominal GDP, whereas in real terms it has not increased. So this is whenever we are referring to rise in GDP or other things, we are always talking about the real GDP. And that is why when we talk about economic growth, we are always discussing about what was the change. Economic growth is equal to real GDP current year, let us say 2021, previous year 2020, so change divided by starting point from where it is, the starting point. So like any change, so whenever we are, so economy has grown by 8%, deceleration on account of COVID is 3.5, let's just an example. So it is, we are always referring to this thing. And there is one more concept, per capita income, that is total national income, this divided by total population. So it is also one of the indicators, but not the foolproof method for the indicator of the wealth. So Now, this is very commonly used, per capita income, but GDP is widely used, as I told you, one of the most important measures for measuring the health of a nation is through GDP. Question is, does GDP measure what we want to measure? Because any measurement is always inexact. You know, it's not without fault lines. GDP is not flawless. There are various aspects which GDP excludes. Please remember one thing, that market price, anything which is sold in a market at a price will be included. If anything is worth, but it is not sold in a market, maybe the parenting, or maybe you wash your car, some household activities are carried out, and so on and so forth, they may not be included. Similarly, GDP also does not include various, so it is not synonymous with the welfare. It may be that a country is experiencing a rise in GDP or national income, yet its welfare is not. For example, one of the we are increasing, the GDP in India has experienced, but the health infrastructure in current situation is underlying the fact that the welfare of the people, and also it's an extraordinary situation. But even normal circumstances, we find that, so various other indicators have been used. For example, GDP does not include these factors, child care, and so on. These are very important things, but they are not, because they are not sold at a price in the market. Similarly, GDP does not include black economy, there are which are outside the purview of the formal economy. Even in economy like as advanced as USA, almost 25%, 1/4 of the the GDP is generated outside the formal economy, not to speak of India. So that is why it may not give a complete picture. Similarly, the GDP does not capture distribution of income. This is a very important shortcoming. Distribution of GDP. GDP is increasing 8%, but the difference between haves and have-nots, rich are becoming more rich and poor are becoming more poor. The gap is widening. So GDP also does not tell us about these things. And this has been highlighted in recent time by Thomas Piketty's famous book, Capital in 21st Century, where he highlighted that the gap between rich and poor in the developed and other in Indian economy has widened over the years, and it is one of the, although GDP is increasing, but the lot of the poor, impoverished, downtrodden, those who are left out of market is not getting improved. So GDP also does not capture. And the value of labor, that is, you should not work, it is not included, because if there too much work is there, maybe health and other issues, the stress is there, and so on and so forth. So all these are also not captured in GDP. Then healthcare, I have already told you. This has been brought to the highlighted in recent times in our country as well and other countries as well. So it's not. Then pollution, that if you are producing too much goods, GDP will increase, but at the same time, the pollution and other things will also increase. That will affect negative effect on our health and others. And GDP also does not capture some other social problems like crime and other issues. So it is not a complete measure of well-being of a nation, but it is inexact and it is not. It has drawbacks. And recent times, some attempt has been made to broaden it, to include it, make it more comprehensive and like that. And with the advent of digital economy, there is also great challenge. There are various activities which we carry out through a digital mode, but they are not captured in the GDP. And because please remember that if you get anything free, for example, if you get a free advice through digital medium, that will be not included. For example, if you are connected to Facebook to your friend, maybe your well-being is increased, but it is not included. For example, if you are listening to good music or some other thing, it's not included in national income. But that is why in recent time, there are attempts that to include. For example, a study was conducted to find out, asking people how much they are willing to take to give up Facebook. The minimum amount which people said was $10 that they will leave Facebook, and the median was $500, meaning upper, lower, the median. So it means that even they are asked to leave it. But not that the digital economy has brought only well-being. Digital economy has also brought some other side effects like addiction, another thing. And despite the question is that why we are connected, so much connected to our friends through various social network inside, yet we are alone. That is why a famous book discusses about this, Alone Together. We are together yet alone. But the limited point here is that the measurement of the output generated by digital economy has to be included to arrive at, because in some cases it is welfare enhancing, in some cases it is welfare reducing. So and GDP only include those activities which are sold at a price in the market, not others. So with this, I have covered in very brief about national income and what are the various aspects of it, to provide an overview of it. And I understand that this lecture and the earlier lecture will not make you an expert in national income, but at least I hope that it will enable you to appreciate some aspect of national income. Whenever you come across GDP or other things, at least some idea may click and may remain in your mind, because the attention span of the people who you address is very limited. So I hope that because GDP is one concept which will stay you for your entire life, because unless we have some other, it may be improved later on. For your information, the person who is credited with the arriving at the scientific method of calculation of GDP, national income, his name is Simon Kuznets. He was at Harvard. He received Nobel Prize, and he was also an advisor, history advisor of Subramanian Swamy, who also studied at Harvard. He was the PhD guide of Subramanian Swamy. So Simon Kuznets arrived at, and then later on James Tobin and other. So they said that we should exclude pollution, add leisure activities. For example, if there's too much work, and then further refinement. A committee was established by French government under the chairmanship of Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel Prize winner, to suggest better ways to measure the welfare of, and they suggested various improvements. Now I invite your question if you have. If you do not have any question, then I will close it and we'll meet you inshallah next week, because these are difficult times. Sometimes that every family is facing some sort of stress on account of the happenings which recent times. So let us pray that may Allah help us to tide over this difficult time. And we'll see you inshallah on Monday with a new topic, and that will be monetary policy and how it is conducted by the RBI. With this, I close for the day.
Thank you, sir.